Get ready to learn the top secrets and simple strategies for living the life of your dreams. Welcome to Living the Dream Podcast, where it's not just about achieving your goals in the future, it's about enjoying your journey along the way. Here are your hosts, Krista Joy and Christy Fredericks.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to newlivingthedreampodcast.com. Today, we are talking about visualization, if I can even say it, to help you live the life of your dreams. My question for our listeners out there is this: have you been able to master visualization? I have not, and maybe that's the exact reason I felt so strongly led for us to talk about this topic today, but we'll get to all that later on.
Visualization isn't something fluffy used by people who aren't living in reality. It's quite the opposite. It's used by a whole array of people who know how to use it to bring about positive outcomes in their life. Many athletes, including Olympians, use it to excel in their sports. And yes, the experts say it takes hard work and confidence along with visualization to really get what we want. We're all about actionable steps, and we know you are too. So we have actually added 5 steps to get you started with visualization if you're new at this, like us.
All right, so now it's time for my little story. So on Sunday last week, I was feeling a little down and I needed a lift. So I fired up YouTube and I started watching one of the top performers in my direct sales company, Christy and mine. We're both in this company now. And she was talking about how she visualized in her mind what she wanted from our business. And she saw the success in her mind long before it happened. It was a great speech. So next, I watched her in a speech she made a few years later. And her topic on this one was how to take quantum leaps in business. Well, guess what? Even 10 years later, she mentioned visualization and belief again. And then I jumped over to a YouTube channel full of videos for people in direct sales. And I wanted to watch this same woman get interviewed this time instead of speaking on stage, just to see if anything different was said. Well, sure enough, she mentioned visualization. But this time she mentioned confidence too. And we'll get to the confidence piece in a bit. But the host was only interviewing millionaires on each show. So I watched this guy conduct a few more interviews with various people. And at the end, he would ask the millionaires to look in the camera and tell people in the audience their best tips for making $1 million in direct sales. And you guessed it, every millionaire I saw mentioned visualization and belief. And then yesterday, I just wanted to relax and chill for a few minutes. And for no particular reason, I came upon a Disney movie called The Princess and the Frog. And the main character, Tiana, was dreaming about her restaurant that she was going to build. And wow, she saw it so clearly in her mind. The movie showed her dream in golden colors, people at the tables, the food they were eating, and the band that was playing. She even had a vision of herself wiping food off a little baby's chin. And all this while she sang a song called Almost There. And that's when I said, okay, God, I think I hear what you're trying to tell me. And today's show is a product of that.
And many people aren't aware of how powerful visualizing can be in their lives. What Krista found is that successful people don't just visualize, they believe. They absolutely believe that they have the abilities to succeed. And they will not entertain, think about, or talk about the possibilities that they'll fail. They do not even consider the possibility of failure. This is the confidence factor mixed in with the visualization, and that, along with hard work, are your keys to success. In fact, many of us are doing plenty of visualizations every day. I know I do this. Maybe you've tried this and it didn't work for you in the past. The problem is that most of us are doing visualizations to create the life that we don't want. We are often using it to imagine the worst outcomes of things or worrying about the future. This is me all the time. If you can remember a time that you worried so much about something that it actually happened, that's a good example of using visualization to create a life that you don't want.
Yes. So we got to be careful of that. So
Yeah.
And positive thinking versus positive knowing. And I believe this is where the confidence piece comes in. These are two different things: positive thinking versus positive knowing. You always act in a manner consistent with your beliefs. The most important belief system you can build is a prosperity consciousness where you absolutely believe that you are going to achieve your goals. We call this positive knowing versus positive thinking. Positive thinking can sometimes be wishing or hoping, but positive knowing is when you absolutely know that no matter what, you will be successful.
That's really powerful. And that's so key. Like just that slight difference makes such a big difference.
I think this might be what I've been missing all these years. That piece.
You know, yeah, I agree. And I think that that may be like the main key to all of this is just that slight variation, the positive knowing versus the positive thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So now we'll get into the steps. So step 1, you need to know what you want. So, in order to visualize and manifest the kind of life you want, it's very important to have a clear idea of what you want and why. This can be achieved by understanding what you value and what brings you the most joy in life. Have you ever had that moment when you were doing something and felt truly joyful doing it? If yes, then that's a good sign of something you might want to have in your life. So ask yourself, if I had nothing holding me back, what would I want to see in my life?
Yeah, so this is key. This it's We're saying it so quickly. Step 1, know what you want. But this is the part 2 that I'm struggling with right now. And this can happen if you're in a lot of despair, if your life is in crisis mode, this can be almost impossible for you to do, and that's okay. You probably need to wait a while until things get more normal.
I watched an awesome video this morning, and Krista and I were talking about this before we started recording. I kind of spend the beginning of my day watching motivational and, powerful videos like that. And I watched this awesome one this morning that talked a little bit about visualization and how you can kind of pinpoint knowing what you want when you don't have a clue. And like Krista said, it's really hard in times of crisis. And we know as a world, even if you're not directly impacted, there's just a lot going on right now. And so sometimes that does kind of affect the clarity. So this video talked about actually making a list of what you talked about here on everything that you have done that makes you feel joy. So anything that you can think of that caused you to be happy, whatever that those moments were, your favorite books, your favorite songs, your favorite people, your favorite foods, like put all of those down on a piece of paper and look for common threads. You'll probably find things that a lot of them have. Like I know for myself, if I put a lot of them down, I'm going to see common threads on family and friends and travel, and there's going to be a lot of things there. Times are really tough. So maybe your mind's not in what's making me happy. You can even go negative on this. You can actually, they even recommended this for people who are struggling. Write a list of all the things that you don't want. What do you just not like? And sometimes looking at that negative and then saying to yourself, okay, what's the exact opposite? So if I don't like rude people and I don't like hate and I don't like all of these things, what is the opposite of that? And that might be what you want to see more of in your life.
That's genius. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's going to help me a lot in figuring this out, because this is a big piece of it. If we don't decide what we want, if we don't know where we're going, we don't know the destination, how are we ever going to get there? So this is a big piece of it. And I think what you said is going to be so helpful to me to help me figure out what it is I want to visualize. That was good stuff. You got to send me that, or maybe definitely put a link to it in the notes.
I will. I definitely will.
Yeah, I would love to learn more about that. But for everybody listening, don't you love this, that we're doing these actionable questions at the end of each one? So I have to remember this, what Christy said. If I had nothing holding me back, what would I want to see in my life? Or another version of this I've heard is, if you just won the lottery, what would your life look like? If you couldn't fail, what would you have going on right now? So those are some different versions of that, because it's easy to stop ourselves and not let ourselves dream. But you have to ask yourself very specifically, if nothing was holding you back, what would you want to see in your life?
Exactly. And then you can always go back to our past episode, our most recent one about limiting beliefs. Because if you're limiting, don't limit yourself. You don't have to limit. I mean, take all those limitations off yourself. Dream big, like think big. Don't let money, don't let other people's opinions, don't let fear of failure, nothing else hold you back. If nothing could hold you back, what would you do?
Yes, and I want to add to that to pray. If you're a believing person like I am, I know that I want God to influence my vision for my future, and I want his input, because if I decide all this stuff by myself and it's not what he wants, it's not going to happen anyway. So I take a lot of time to pray, before I begin on a journey like this. So I just want to mention that as well. If you're a believing person and you want God with you, you can totally ask him before you go on this path of thinking. So are we ready to move on to step 2?
Yes. What is step 2?
Okay, so step 2, describe your vision in detail. Wow. So once I get it, I got to know the details. This is one of the most important steps. When you want to manifest the life you want, you have to create a clear vision of what it would look like. You can write this down in detail, or you could create a vision board. This will help you to create a clear and full picture of what your life would look like. Here it is, the action item. Ready? Ask yourself, if I had a magic wand to make anything happen, what would my life look like?
Okay, I have a really silly story about this. But I told you on a past episode, I worked in a job that I didn't like, and I kept in my drawer a picture of Colorado because my dream goal was to leave Kansas and move to Colorado. And every time I would get really irritated at my job, I would just open my drawer and look at my picture. And ultimately, it took some time, but I moved directly from that job to Colorado. So now my goal, and something I've wanted since I was a child, was to live in Florida. And, we're doing those actionable steps, saving money and looking for areas to live and all of that. But to actually visualize it and to try to feel like what it would be like, we redecorated our entire bedroom. And so I live in a bedroom, or I sleep in a bedroom and I work in a bedroom that looks like the beach. So it's beachy colors. I have paintings of beaches and boats. I have my beach hat out. I mean, I have a little lighthouse. I have a picture that says sea on it. It's my visualization kind of come to life. And I'm hoping if I stare at it enough and I think about it enough and I, you know, put this vision in such detail that someday it's going to actually happen.
That's amazing. So beyond the vision board, you've got a vision room going on.
I have a vision room going on. I'm like full immersion in here. I listen to ocean sounds at night while I sleep. I mean, I know it's silly, but it's like the full immersion process.
Wow. I think that's great. Good for you. That's fantastic. That's commitment. I love it.
All right, we've got step 3. So start visualizing and create the emotions. So once you're ready, you can take a moment to start envisioning the actual outcome. Start to imagine the sights, the sounds, the smells, and even the taste of achieving what you want. As you go along, don't forget to feel the emotions you would feel as if this life was really your reality now. So on this one, ask yourself, what would I feel if all my visualizations came true?
This is a Tony Robbins thing. The little bit of training I did the other day, this is what he was saying. You need to feel that feeling in your heart. Remember that thing that happened and feel that feeling in your heart. It's called stacking the positive emotions and to get what you ultimately want.
And I think that's so true because I was watching some Tony Robbins in one of my little morning watch-a-thons that I do. And I think that's the key, right? Because really it's not so much about the stuff that we want. It's really the emotional piece. I mean, that's what we're all kind of looking for.
Yeah.
Right? We really want that good feeling. We want that joy, that feeling of abundance, the feeling of gratitude, the feeling of positivity and hope and optimism. I mean, it's those positive emotions that we're craving and searching for more than anything, probably material in this life. It's those little things, because you can look at the people who have nothing, but they have, they feel content and happy and at peace. And you can look at people who have everything materially and are so just unhappy. And so you can tell it's really the emotional component that's the difference there.
Yes, that's such a good point. That's so true. So at this point, I wanted to kind of share something that really had an effect on me. Once again, a leader in my direct sales company that I'm with, she went into great detail about the day that she sat down and wrote in a journal, truly like what her day would look like once she achieved her goals. And she went so far as to read it all out loud and record herself saying it as if it was in the present moment. And I'm talking Tiana style details. Like she just, from the minute she got up till she went to bed, what was happening as if it were happening right then. I'm trying to think of some of the really, really like specific details, but just kind of what you're doing, Christy. I'm waking up on the beach. I hear the ocean waves. I'm having breakfast on my balcony of my new house, and just very specific stuff. And it just really made an effect on me. I want to say it was like 30 minutes long, and she played it for us, and she played it for herself as she was working on this, and she would fall asleep to that at night. And I just thought that was so brilliant. And if I'm ever so bold, that is something that I want to do. Once I truly decide what I want and can get that detailed. And I think that's key. That's what the common thread here and all these speakers that I was watching and things. The visualization piece is so important. And it seems so silly, just does this really work? But my thinking is, okay, if I'm crazy and it doesn't work, what have I got to lose, right? I'm just going to try it.
Yeah, exactly. I love that because, sometimes we do feel silly doing these things. And honestly, like when we decorated our room like totally beachy, it didn't even occur to me that it was a visualization until like you were talking about this, and I was thinking, wow, like I've totally immersed myself into like a vision board. But, it does it can feel silly and like, what are we doing? Is this really going to happen? Is this some sort of strange voodoo? But I also think too that we tend to, whatever we're focused on is what we see, right? So I have, a very negative person in my life, and it doesn't matter if they're in the best situation in the world, they will always focus on anything there is to complain about. Super negative people just tend to find all of the things that are negative, right? So I think it's the same thing with the visualization. If I'm just focused on this dream of mine, it's going to kind of come to me because that's what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for ways to create this journey and this path to get to where I want to go. So maybe it's not as crazy as we kind of feel when we start it.
Yeah. The thing we want to just let everybody know too, it's not just thinking about it. You do have to have confidence in yourself, and you do have to work towards it too. I know Christy, every waking hour, she also works towards this goal. So it doesn't just fall in your lap. We don't want everybody to think we're just saying, think about it and it'll come true, because it's not.
Right.
We got to put the work behind it too. So,
Yes.
which
Yes.
leads us to step 4.
Step 4, here we go, the work piece. Take daily actions. There's a saying that Rome was not built in a day. Similarly, the life you want to create won't happen in one day, but will eventuate in a series of days and actions of working towards your goal. Don't get too caught up with how far you are. Instead, focus on the present and set yourself daily or weekly actions to get to where you want. So on this one, ask yourself, what is one thing I could do today that would help me get closer to the life I want? And you've heard us talk about this over and over again. Sometimes these tasks or these dreams that we have just seem monumental. How are we going to do this? Like, how am I going to live in Florida? I currently live in Colorado. How is this possibly going to happen? I don't have a place to live. I don't have the money to do this. I don't have a job there. Like, how is this ever going to happen? Instead of getting all caught up in how big it is and how huge this goal is, what is one thing, like just one small thing, one small step you can take to get just a little bit closer to that life you want? I mean, you know the end and you know where you are today. One thing, just one tiny step in the right direction.
Yeah, and we can't say this enough, Christy. I mean, you've made a huge difference in my life just from hearing you talk about this. So that's why I wanted you to mention it again on the show. Taking these little baby steps, because again, on the dark days, on the days when, man, just getting out of bed, just man, I don't even want to do that. Well, I hear Christy's voice in my head say, "Okay, just sit up. That's step one."
Right.
Okay, now swing your leg over the side of the bed and walk towards the shower. That's step two. And literally, I don't care how small the steps are, but if you're doing them, it's getting your body and your brain in the right direction. And ultimately, those little teeny tiny steps are what can lead to your home in Florida or whatever you want.
Exactly. Exactly. It's all those small steps stacked one on top of the other that will get us there, right? It's like when I was a kid, we always used to take road trips. So we were pretty poor growing up, and airplanes were not something that we did too much until I got much older. So it was all about the road trip. And I remember we would drive from Kansas to Colorado. That was kind of our classic thing. We did mostly camping when I was younger. And we'd start in Kansas, and I would just watch the mile markers count down. You know, when you travel through Western Kansas, if anybody else has done this, there's not a lot to see. It's mostly wheat fields and windmills, a few occasional cows here and there, but not a whole lot. You drive for a good 4 or 5 hours with not much. And so I would spend my time before cell phones and all of those things. I'm going to date myself a little, just watching the mile markers go, just 1 mile at a time. There's 625 miles from my house to Denver. And, it's that same concept. It's just one small step at a time, and you will eventually get at your destination. You will get there, but you got to get moving. It's that daily action. I know how hard it is because I am the biggest procrastinator known to man. This is my step 4 is my most difficult challenge personally. But we can do this. We can all do this together.
So that's the question for number 4. What is one thing I could do today that would help me get closer to the life I want? I love that. I'm going to work on that too. So step 5, here's our 5th tip for you. Have grit and persevere. This is one, oh man, this is the one I need too. When creating the life you want, you will be faced with challenges. In fact, one important tip when you are doing your visualizations is to imagine yourself facing these challenges and, most importantly, overcoming them. This is brilliant. This is something I have never done. So I'm like excited that maybe this is the it factor here. So what we're saying is plan and expect challenges and decide ahead of time how you will overcome the challenges. So I think you got to be careful because, again, you don't want to focus on the challenges happening because then those will happen. But you do want to, you know yourself better than anyone else. So it's a good question to ask. Well, how would I sabotage myself? What's happened to me before that made me give up and quit? And let me just think now about how I will overcome that. Isn't that amazing? That's so key. And then
Yeah.
you just get your little journal out and go, okay, here's what's happening. Okay, here's what I told myself I was going to do to overcome this. Let me do that. And then just do it.
I think that's so important. One of my best friends for years and years, she had cancer. And I remember probably the last couple years of her life, I would always say to her, you are the healthiest cancer patient that I've ever seen. She was methodical about her diet and her working out and everything, just like everything that she did. And I remember her saying, when trying to encourage me to, eat better and to be better about exercise and things like that, she's like, you have to just plan for life to get in the way. life gets in the way. Expect people to get sick, expect things to happen, expect things to go wrong. And to set yourself up so that you can overcome these challenges because you know they're coming because we all do deal with them, right? Everybody's got kids that get sick or an unexpected phone call or whatever might derail you. Like for me, motivation, procrastination, things like that will always be something that derails me because I can look at back in history and just say, yep, like I procrastinated, didn't get that done, waited till the last minute or whatever. You can expect and anticipate these challenges. And I think that is an awesome piece to this because you know what you've done in the past. And if you get a plan of action, okay, when I start to fall back into this pitfall again, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to have that grit. I'm going to persevere. I'm going to get through this. Next, we have resolve to achieve greatly. So, self mastery, self control, self discipline are essential for anyone who wants to achieve greatly. And control over your thoughts is the hardest exercise in self mastery that you will ever engage in. See if you can talk and think about only what you want to only what you desire and not talk or think about anything that you don't want for 24 hours. Now that is a challenge. Then you'll see what you're really made of. It's a hard thing to do. But with practice, you can reach the point where you're thinking about your goals and your desires most of the time. Then your whole life will change for the better. So ask yourself, what would help me persevere when I am faced with a challenge?
Yeah. So I think that question goes back to our last tip. Resolving to achieve greatly is just kind of a bonus tip, right?
Yeah.
And this is so hard. I really struggle with self-discipline and self-mastery, self-control. So in addition to those 5 tips we gave you, this is kind of a bonus thing that if we could just harness this and make it part of our lives, I just think everything would be so much better.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that a lot of it does come down to self discipline because if you're like Krista and I and you watch a lot of these motivational speakers or these people who have accomplished so much, and when I say accomplished a lot, I just mean I consider successful people as happy, content people who, have live in a life of peace and feel good. And when you look at those people, the one common thread that I see so much is self-discipline because these are the people who have those morning routines and the people who break down their big goals into small steps. And they do have the grit and they do persevere. And it just takes such a great deal of self-discipline. Maybe if out of everything we've talked about today, I think maybe that should be like for me, my focus, because even my motivation issues and my procrastination issues really boils down to self-discipline. If I
Yeah.
was more self-disciplined, right, I would be more motivated and I would be less of a procrastinator.
I'm right there with you.
All right, so let's run through these steps one more time. So step 1, know what you want.
Step 2, describe your vision in detail.
Step 3, start visualizing and create the emotions. Step 4, take daily actions.
Step 5, have grit and persevere.
So to recap, as you visualize the life you want and utilize the 5 steps above, you will start to find your life reflecting your visualizations. Remember, many people, including celebrities who started without much in their lives, like Jim Carrey and Oprah Winfrey, use and swear by visualizations too. Be open, try it, and see where it takes you.
Yeah, so everybody should Google this, but I heard a story that Jim Carrey wrote a check to himself for $1 million and carried that around in his wallet until he actually made $1 million. And it was in a time where that was a crazy dream. Like when he did that for himself, it was like a really insane pipe dream. So look
That's
it up.
amazing. And
Yeah.
it's funny that you say that because I was this morning during my, watch-a-thon, I saw a thing about Oprah Winfrey and about how poor she was as a child, that she wore dresses made from potato sacks. I mean, it's amazing how far people can come.
Yeah. Yeah, all, and the common thread is that visualization piece. And so I'm really excited to try to do a better job of applying this to my life. And Christy, we're going to make our dreams come true, and hopefully all the listeners as well after they've heard this podcast.
Absolutely.
So, to wrap it up, we hope you've enjoyed today's episode. And if we've inspired you to live your dream life with visualization, we hope you'll check out our website, newlivingthedreampodcast.com, for more information. And if you've already achieved your goal, we would love to hear from you. Join our Facebook group, Simple Dream Life Strategies. We can't wait to get inspired by your success.
Thanks for listening to Living the Dream podcast, where we know it's not just about achieving your goals in the future, it's about enjoying your journey along the way.
Music for today's episode was provided by Peter Alden's Kingdom Classics, now available for purchase on our website. This presentation represents the opinions of the hosts and guests of the show. Our show is informational and for entertainment purposes only. Always consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate, we welcome your comments and suggestions. Contact information for Krista Joy can be found at disneyways.com/connect. Reach out to Christy Fredericks at disneyworldenthusiast.com/about. At Living the Dream Podcast, we know it's not just about achieving your goals in the future, it's about enjoying your journey along the way.